All right, we are live. I'm Eric Levine with our co-host Crystal Horton, and this is the Ranked LSA Trends podcast. We're going to be discussing all things Google Local Services ads. Crystal, welcome to the show. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Me too. I'm pretty excited about it.
LSAs are a hot topic for a number of reasons. Maybe that's a good jumping off point. Like, Crystal, why do you think that LSAs have been and continue to be a hot topic?
I think anything that shows up at the top of Google becomes your new obsession. And since LSA has primarily been there, to join some way, somehow, and figure it out.
And I mean, yeah, and honestly, the LSAs have been really successful. They've also been really not successful. They're a little bit of a black box. You know, you get kind of mixed signals from some experts. Google makes a lot of changes. So with that, Crystal, you want to talk a little bit about what kind of caught our attention that we were looking at as far as this AI summary impacting LSAs?
So lead volume for the majority of accounts had decreased in February, like just across the board. It was interesting because at that time, Google was really pushing their AI summary. So around Super Bowl is when we started to see the AI summary not only populate on desktop where Google typically tests things out, but it started to populate on mobile, where normally we don't have much of a disruption on mobile, and LSA continues to do what it does. AI summary was at the top, then it was LSA, then it was pay-per-click ads, and then I think underneath that it was Google Business Profiles. And due to that, that's how we saw a decrease in leads.
For as long as I've worked with or known LSAs, Google has marketed them as being at the top of search. And so to see them push down the page, because I did see a screenshot, it's literally just the AI summary and it kind of pushes everything down. I wanted to look up what is Google's official definition of the AI summary? And it says AI overviews use generative AI to provide key information about a topic or question with links to dig deeper and learn more on the web. So, because I remember back in the day, typing full questions into Google search to try to get maybe some web page that would pull it up, and it would be very difficult to actually get answers. So I love the AI summaries, but for LSAs, from a product standpoint, to your point, more importantly to a revenue standpoint, Google choosing one provider to give an in-depth description on, and then I think it gave a description and it cited Yelp as the source.
Yes, it did. That's right. I was curious about that too.
It would make sense if they cited, Google or reviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen with restaurants and stuff now, they're having those review summaries. So that would make sense. But to cite Yelp, I just thought it was very strange. But yeah, Google's always changing.
The AI summary was pulling information from old citations that we didn't even think Google looked for anymore. So there's always a curveball or something different, but I think a lot of the questions too that I'm getting is if Google's pushing the AI summary, when will they start bringing ads into it? So everybody's just very curious to see what happens. I am as well, because I don't have any internal insight there, but it's definitely a game changer.
Yeah, I could definitely see a combination of somebody asking a few questions, getting those questions answered, and then the sort of logical conclusion being based on, what you're looking for, based on the discovery that the AI summary has done. Here's 3 people who we'd recommend. From that screenshot, it was just a normal LSA search. It was it was Home Services Pro plus a Geo, and then it gave this. It didn't ask, what should I be looking for when hiring a garage door pro, or any questions like that. So in the future, it's going to be interesting to see what happened, or even sort of the reverse, which is do a search that would normally trigger the LSAs and then get some follow-up questions. What is the exact issue that you're having? Or, if you've got a broken pipe in your house, do you need this fixed right away or sometime later this week? Something like that. So I could see Google recommending someone who has, say, booking slots that are available, or someone who has a quick response rate to message leads if you're looking for something immediate. But yeah, it is interesting.
Yes, definitely interesting. I think too, the other thing is anytime Google is beta testing something, like when they first did a soft launch of the AI summary, I think a year and a half ago, well, it was pulling in, no, it was Bard. I can't remember. Whatever it was.
Way back.
Okay, remember? Yes.
Yeah.
And so then you would type in your typical keyword plus geo because that's what you're used to. And then it would populate the Google Business Profiles. Then it sort of disappeared, and now we've got this AI summary that is appearing now. So I believe Google will eventually get it together, because the first beta test is always the one that you learn the most from.
Yeah, and especially if lead volume is decreasing, at the end of the day, no matter what product they're testing out, if it's impacting lead volume, I can't see it persisting, or at least not immediately shifting the conversation to, hey, do you want to buy something? As quickly as possible. A lot of this comes down to the unpredictability of LSAs, that they change so much, and even budget forecasting, like with pay-per-click, it is common and it's relatively accurate to say that, over the last 6 months we paid this. Over the next 6 months, we should be within some sort of a range here. But if somebody on LSA got 10 leads per week over the last 6 months, how confident would you be that that's going to continue?
Well, and what makes me nervous when I'm asked that question too is January. Historically, mid-January, that's when you start to see lead volume increase, search volume is starting to increase again. Holidays, people have moved on, things are just starting to get back into the flow of things. But this year, it was a decrease straight through February, and then that AI summary was populating on mobile. I was really sad that it populated on mobile, which is why I keep saying that, because that's what affected everything, and lead volume decreased for LSA. So then going into March, I was super nervous of, oh my gosh, is this going to be the new LSA? But things are finally starting to pick back up because there's no beta testing. We're sort of going back into the same system. I'm noticing a little bit more of a round robin appearance, as opposed to the top 2 and the top 3 staying there for at least an hour and a half. But it's almost like LSA is somehow figuring out how to spread the wealth with the leads as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess, how do you talk to clients about that? Or is there a way to talk around that if let's say you've got 2 different classes of clients. One class, they're used to being number 1 and number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like always, historically, that's just where they're used to be. And then you've got somebody else who says, I just can't get these to perform. Is there a way you set expectations with them about how they look at this, or how do you think about that?
When I meet with the clients, I like that we both have our phones with us. We both have desktop. We're both, I'm sharing my screen and doing the desktop search. They're doing their desktop search. And we're seeing that even though we're targeting the same geo, things are populating differently. He has a different list than I have. She has a different list, whatever. Then we go to mobile and it's completely different. Well, we're still using the same IP, same address, but we're using our own devices. So that helps me best explain that it's not the same for everyone. And that starts to explain, the story of what's happening and why lead volume is decreasing. And then from there, we just really get super nerdy and dig into it.
I agree with that LSA is it's an expectation setting game. Mm-hmm. It really is. And if you can kind of get people to think, hey, here's how Google might think about this, and to say, well, what are they running all these experiments for? It's well, because behavior changes, seasonality, a whole bunch of things change. So if they're constantly testing about what might work, they're eventually they're going to figure it out. Even though it does cause consternation when, as a business, you get used to running things a certain way, and now all of a sudden Google changes something and it throws a wrench into your business. So yeah, I can understand why there's a little bit of frustration, but yeah, overall. So if you think that if they're doing a little bit more of the round robin and sort of spreading the wealth, is that ultimately beneficial to Google in the long run to spread leads out more, or does those businesses who are used to showing up number 1, number 2, that absolute top impression rate isn't stellar or isn't what they're used to? How do you have that conversation with those types of the super top performers?
Yeah, I think what's really tough is when you're in that number 1 and number 2 spot, and you have been consistently for 3 years, and things are changing, and Google is adapting to that search intent almost every hour now, as opposed to what you're seeing. It's tough because it's almost as if we'd have to go back and look at the numbers or the stats and the lead volume over the past year to sort of come up with an average, because that's the constant question, what's the goal? So you have something to look for, where previously Google business profiles. It was, okay, I'm going to check my keywords when I'm drinking my coffee. Like, you have habits are formed, right? You have to replace that habit with something new. So then it became LSA, where everybody was searching and upset because that number one spot was always taken by the same individual. Now we're seeing the round robin. So it's just really learning what your numbers are to help predict what you could do for April or for July based off of your very own stats and not necessarily comparing to others. I think that's where LSA lacks, and that's why like you have talked about, Eric, setting those expectations, because now it's kind of switched. It's more learning what your numbers are instead of comparing to the business next to you.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Although sometimes it's a hard conversation to have when people are a little bit competitive and they
Yes.
want to know whatever it is, that they are like, we don't have to do this arbitrary, better than we did last week. We just want to do better than this guy or these two people. So what are they doing that's different? What are we not doing? And they make it difficult to find out, well, how do we get that edge?
Well, would you agree that not every LSA account has the same tools? Like, if you're connected to, I always get this mixed up, agency partner or a managed partner. Like, there's some internal insights that you could receive, or sometimes there's different things on the Google Ads dashboard that show up that don't necessarily show up for others. That I think that also has different opportunities, that maybe sometimes an account can rank higher or get higher leads versus another account. You can see those promotion tags only show up on certain profiles, right? And then everybody wants to know how to get to it, but nobody knows how to activate it.
If you have promotions or things that are listed on the website, part of the terms of service that was maybe a year ago, I would say, Google said some version of, we can use content from your website and we can pull content from your website. And a lot of it had to do with the website. So
Remember that.
yeah, if you're home services, you don't have to have your website linked on there because it doesn't display on search versus like with lawyers when it does. But if you do have your website linked, they could pull some of those promotions info, but it's not so clear. It doesn't, I don't see any like explicit literature that says if you have promos on your website, we will pull it and we can have it here, or you can opt in or opt out. So yeah, a little bit opaque.
6 months ago, I think there was a oops or a glitch because the website was showing as an icon next to the call button and the booked button. Or they were bouncing back and forth between a reviews button next to the call button if you didn't have message leads or something turned on. So I agree, evening out the playing field, checking everything at least once a quarter, because I almost bet something's changed from 3 months ago. It needs to be added or removed to your list of checks.
Yeah, let's do some quick shout outs. And if anybody has, if you're seeing stuff on LSA, and you want us to talk about it, or you see something that you think might be an experiment, like send it to us on LinkedIn, send us screenshots, anything you want, we'll chat about it. But Crystal, let's take it away. Where can people find more about you?
I'm Crystal Horton, been in digital marketing for 12 years. I love to solve problems. That's really it.
I'm Eric Levine. I spent 6.5 years at Google helping build local services ads. I was a program manager there, and I started LeadWise HQ. We help multi-location operators and people get the most out of local services ads. And find me on LinkedIn. You can find Crystal on LinkedIn, and let us know what you think. Thanks, Crystal.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.